Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Jungle Show. We are here today to talk about none other than returning Auburn junior guard KD Johnson, the former Georgia transfer. We're going to talk all about him and more, talk about some upcoming stuff for the draft, and also go through the article I wrote on auburndaily.com about KD Johnson and the Auburn basketball player preview series we're doing on auburndaily.com. You can check that out there. All that and more next on the Jungle Show.
Just by clicking below.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Jungle Show. We are back here again. I believe this is number 10. I could be mistaken. I believe it's number 10.
You better count.
I think I'm right on this. I think I remember thinking that last week was 9, so this week is 10, and today is KD Johnson. I've been looking forward to talking about KD Johnson in this episode and writing an article about KD for a long time now, and it's super pumped to be back. We're back here in the same room again. I'm here with my dad, Chris, and right now there's in the Metro Birmingham area, there's some thunderstorms going on. While we're recording this live at 6 p.m. every Friday right now, there's thunderstorms outside, so if you hear any thunder, maybe some rain.
Or scared dogs.
Or a scared dog, yeah, right outside. So just some housewarming things. Also, if we all of a sudden go randomly offline, then it is lightning. The power has flickered in the past hour or so, but we're hoping that it is passed. We're ready to move on and talk about KD Johnson and Auburn basketball. Dad, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I just got back from going to pick up pizza for the family and drove back in some hail and lightning and came home to dogs going crazy and the power flickering right as you were trying to get us into the chat room here. And so we're hopefully that's passed. And look, I'm excited. It's weird to say I'm excited to talk about KD Johnson because he's always excited. But I am. I'm thrilled. You put a good article up today on Auburn Daily. We're going to talk about that article, and then but people can go and read it. I tweeted out about an hour ago that we were coming on and tweeted the article out. So hopefully people have read it and we'll get a chance to join in the conversation a little bit.
Absolutely. If you want to join in the conversation, there's always the live chat room on the YouTube and on Facebook. Or if you just want to follow along on the article that we'll go through, it is on auburndaily.com. It was published early this morning. Or you can go to his Twitter page. I'm going to post it on Twitter. And people on the replay, I'm going to post it on Twitter after the show goes live. So if you want to go look at it as you follow along with the show, feel free to do that.
I'll also post it on Facebook. I did not do that before, so I'll do that.
Yeah. So let's just get right into this. Let's talk about KD Johnson, the former Georgia transfer who played his freshman season in Georgia. He had some eligibility issues, a lot like Sharife Cooper during that COVID year where everything was different. There were no, full crowds. The schedule was weird. And games got canceled and stuff like that. And KD played 16 games in that for Georgia, averaged 13.5 points a game as a true freshman. And he kind of showed that immediate look that it was like, okay, that's a guy for Georgia that if you're a Georgia fan, you love him.
Yep.
But if you're anybody else, you hate that guy. That's how I felt.
He put 27 in his first game on Auburn. Yep. That was one of those games at Georgia that year where KD was coming in for the first game that he's had the chance to play. And we had Sharife, and Sharife had played a few games. And so I was like, I can't wait because all the Georgia fans were like, Sharife, nothing. KD's the man. Well, KD was the man. He had 27 in a loss. Yep. So it was good. Like you said, didn't like him when he played for Georgia, but love him on my team.
Yeah.
And it was good to watch him last year really become psycho KD.
That's right. That's right. You're exactly right. In talking about that game where Sharif had 28-9, I will point that out. So Sharif played a better game, but I agree. You saw, especially that first game back when he played against Auburn at home, it was okay. That guy's the guy we need to watch out for. He doesn't seem like he's an NBA type of player due to his size and due to kind of his play style, but he's going to be a great college basketball player. And what do you know? Maybe in the transfer portal, he immediately comes.
Bruce recruited him in high school. Bruce wanted him. And I think when Sharif decided to come to Auburn, KD kind of was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go to Auburn, so I'm going to go to Georgia. And so when he hit the transfer portal, when he first hit the transfer portal last year, I thought, that would be a really interesting name because we were second on his list.
Yeah.
And then he signs with Auburn and comes in and becomes a part of a group last year that he really made a difference at the shooting guard slot.
Yeah, I agree. So we're going to get right into the article. I kind of just started just now, but KD playing in his 16 games at Georgia averaged 13 points at Georgia his freshman year, then comes to Auburn. He averages 12.3 points last year on 38.6% shooting from the field. I believe it was 29% shooting from three, which, I mean, you think about those numbers, starting shooting guard, you're like, no, but he makes impact in places that a lot, like when we talked last week about Dylan Cardwell, he makes that impact in different ways, especially when it comes to energy, getting his teammates going, getting the crowd going, feeding off of the crowd, and using that to his advantage. And he's a scorer. He's that type of player.
He's a finisher at the rim. I hope that he and we'll talk about it as we get further along in the show, but I'm sure his shooting percentages were probably 5 or 6 points higher before we went to the Texas A&M game, because going over 14 dropped shooting percentages significantly.
Yeah.
But you're right. He provides defense. He provides scoring at the rim. He's not afraid to throw his body around the floor after loose balls or going up, taking it up against the bigger man.
Yeah.
But he, as a shooting guard, we do need him to shoot better. So hopefully that's something that'll improve, and he'll come in and not. He can make the three.
Yeah,
we saw him make the three. He was just a little inconsistent.
Yeah. So we're talking about his biggest strength, and it's the first category that we go into on these articles that are right on overdaily.com. The biggest strength for KD Johnson, and we talked about it a little bit. We're going to talk about his offensive game, but his biggest strength is defense, and turning his defense into his offense and using his defense to provide energy for the team. I mean, not just for him.
He's a great defender. He's a great on-ball defender. He's the guy that most I wouldn't want to be guarded by him because he's all hands. He's got long arms. He's physical. So I think he plays defense with the thought process of they can't call fouls every time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be physical every time. And because of that, he gets steals. He's in passing lanes. He's a good help side defender. Probably could get a little better at help side defending, but his on-ball defense and his one pass away defense is really good. He's quick. He's got long arms. He's strong as an ox, and he looks like a tailback.
Yeah. That's what I thought. When he was at Georgia, I always said that dude looks like Sean Shivers because he's small. I mean, he's obviously not as small as Sean Shivers, unless he would have been able to play basketball the way he does.
He's built.
He looks like Sean Shivers, especially when you compare Sean to a guy like like a quarterback, like when he played with Bo, and you compare KD with a guy like Jabari Smith or Walker Kessler or Alan Flanagan.
Yeah, he's a tenacious defender.
Yeah.
He drives people, I think, crazy with his defense. So I would agree. His biggest strength is on that defensive end, and I think he can be better. They've started him with Zepp a lot, and those two in the backcourt as defensive mates, they switch everything. KD could probably guard 1 through 4, not consistently on the 4, but on a switch. I'm not worried about him because a 4-man would take him down to the post, or a 5 would take him down to the post, but he's quick enough to get around that.
Yeah.
So I think he's got some options on defense as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I noted in the article, I said Johnson was one of the best on-ball and off-ball defenders in the guard category in the SEC, a lot like his backcourt teammate Zeb Jasper that we just talked about, the Honey Badger. Johnson has a true gift when it comes to getting steals and taking the ball away and turning the other team over, even if it's not a steal. You see him turn guys over
absolutely.
a lot, which is just as important.
Absolutely.
He averaged 1.9 steals a game last year, which led the team,
right.
and had a combined 13 steals in just the 3 games at the Battle for Atlantis. But with all that said, about his defensive game, we were talking about this earlier. What his defensive game does, why his defensive game is so good and so important, is because he turns that defense into his offense and his offense's performances. Yeah, he shot 29% from 3. Just like we said, we talked about the A&M game. We'll talk about that here in a second. In the SEC tournament, he goes 0 for 14. That hurt a lot. That hurt that percentage a bit because I think he went 0 for 8 for 3. Mm-hmm. And he had against Arkansas, he went like 0 for 6. And then there were games where he went 1 for 5 or something like that. Those are going to hurt those percentages, especially when games he goes 4 for 5, 5 for 6, which he can do and has done. Mm-hmm. Johnson is a very good driver. You were talking about how he is a great finisher. He always looks like he's extremely out of control. And it may just be his size, it may just be his speed, but it looks like he doesn't know where he is on the court. But his ability to control his frame, he's 6 foot, he's 200 pounds, 190, something like that.
I don't know.
And his ability to control that and even finish over much, much taller defenders is what makes that drive so dangerous. You want to talk guys like good shooters, good shooting guard shooters in Auburn history. Like you want to talk about Samir, or like in recent days, you want to talk about Samir and Bryce. I think KD's a better driver and finisher than both of those two. Both of those were great at getting into the lane and finishing. Mm-hmm. But, KD's not near a shooter as those two. But that his shot is opening up because people are having to back off of him because they know he's quick. He can get by players. He handles the ball well. It looks like he's extremely out of control, but let KD be KD.
Let me go back to what you said a minute ago about turning defense into offense. He's getting steals. So he's getting his steals out on the perimeter mostly, and he's putting his head down and going full speed at the basket. And what that does is, if nothing else, he's drawing fouls. I think he got fouled a lot more than they got called. But again, I'm trying to get banned by the SEC officials' Twitter page, and haven't done that yet. But what he does is he'll throw his body into you and make you foul him. And he's got enough body control, like you said. He controls himself in the air really well. It's hard to compare guys that haven't played together. So I don't know. Maybe Samir, I think, may have been a better finisher, but it's close. And KD is he brings you the energy that you need on that defensive end and turning defense to offense. Is kind of where I was trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talk about how good of a driver he is. We talk about how good of he can hit the outside shot. He can handle the ball. He's a great on-ball defender, especially on-ball defender. Are any of those even close to the energy that he provides? A lot like Dylan Cardwell that we talked about last week in last week's show and on last week's article. The energy, the craziness on the court, the psychopathic material.
He's our psychopath.
That's something you can't teach or you can't coach. So, it's just he brings that great camaraderie to the team. He brings that, just like I said earlier in very early parts of the show, you either love him or you hate him.
He was the guy that was always at the girls' games too, with Jabari and Wendell, but it was always Katie and Jabari. Baseball games, softball games, football. They all went to the football games, but the teammates and the camaraderie is kind of what you were talking about there. You touched on something though, real quickly that I don't want to brush over. He can handle the ball, which means he played backup point guard for us a little bit too. He can run the point. He's a little out of control for all the time running the point, so you don't want that. But and I've had friends of mine that are Auburn basketball fans who've come up and said, he's way too out of control for me. I don't like that. Just it worries me. It's the turnover waiting to happen. Whatever. I wish Bruce would tone him down a little bit. Bruce will tell you, and he's told you, I'm not toning Katie down at all. I want him to be that. That's why I recruited him, because I wanted him to bring that energy, and the jungle feeds off energy. He's got KD, he's got Dylan, he's got himself. Bruce Pearl is an energy guy, and I just you're going to take the good with the bad. You're going to get some turnovers. You're going to get some plays, like you said, that look like he knows where he is on the court, although I think he does. You're going to get some fouls because he's going to be aggressive, but he's also going to draw his fair share of fouls as well. So
absolutely,
you take what you can get.
So we're going to talk about what they can improve on, and we talked a lot. We just did 18 minutes of praise on Katie Johnson.
I like Katie.
Yeah. What could he improve on? And that's the next category in the article. And the first two things that I wrote were consistency and playmaking. And each of them have their reasons. When we talk about being consistent, I'm not saying KD needs to go for 20, 22 a game. I'm saying we don't need to have the Texas A&M game. We don't need to have the Arkansas game where he goes 1 for 9. We don't need to have the there was another game earlier in the year we had 2 points, went 0 for 4 as a starter, like the first game starter. And that was when they switched Wendell and Zep. Very early in the year.
They need 12 or 14 points.
I agree. I think we may need a little more than
6 or 8
that.
assists.
Yeah.
You make a point in the article, and I know you're going to get to it, but when he is getting those assist numbers up, his shooting gets better, his playmaking gets better. You were talking about the 0 for 14 game, but you noticed that the next game we played against Jacksonville State, they ran a
first play
a back cut for him.
It's a flex cut.
Flex cut for him. Thank you. I couldn't come up with flex cut. Ran a flex cut for him, got a layup, and he was off and running. He's a guy that feeds off of momentum, and if you can get him an early shot that goes in, get him a layup, get him a foul where he goes to the line and makes a couple free throws. He's a good free throw shooter. So I think consistency is a big deal.
Absolutely. You talk about, and just like you mentioned, and I mentioned in the article, the first game after the Texas A&M game where he goes 0 for 14, everybody's like, what in the world? Who is that? What have you done with Katie Johnson?
Absolutely.
Okay, the first game back, is the Jacksonville State game, first round of the NCAA tournament. Not only did we run a play for him on the first play, a flex cut, and he scored and got a layup.
I don't think that's not on purpose.
Oh no, that was completely on purpose. He had 7 assists in that game.
That's what I'd love to see him.
He had 7 assists in that game, and his career high, other than that, was 3.
I'd love to see him between 6 and 8 assists and 5 or 6 rebounds and 12, 15 points.
Yeah, Johnson had 1.6 assists per game last year. I noted in the article that 7 assists took it from like 1.4 to 1.6.
Yeah, that's a big
And
step.
that's huge when it comes to especially assist numbers, because being a facilitator, having the threat to pass the ball to your teammates, not only passing it to them, but then scoring. And it helped when you had the number 1 overall pick, Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler on your team last year. But that impact not only affects them, but it affects KD, and it affects the entire flow of the offense, because that opens things up for KD. And things do need to be opened up for KD. He's 6 feet tall. He can't open things up himself.
Mm-hmm.
He can get his shot off, and it's incredible how he does get shot off over taller defenders who are much higher than him, and he makes it, and it's impressive. But open looks, especially inside the arc, need to be created for KD. And if he becomes a facilitator, becomes a passer, a guy who gets 5 to 7, maybe 8 assists a game, that completely changes everything.
He does, and he's a good passer. He's one of the better passers on the team, to be honest with you. And we left that off of a strength. I think it is a strength. But yeah, like if you could get consistently shooting 39-40% from 3, I know that's a huge jump, but KD's a guy that works on that.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that they always showed pictures of KD after games at Auburn,
in the arena,
where he was in the arena by himself with a manager shooting threes. I think he can become a much better 3-point shooter. Passing and cutting, that sort of thing is what he does well. But yeah, if we could get him more consistent on the threes and more consistent on assists, I think it would really enrich his game. So consistency is one that I agree with, and it kind of comes with playmaking with the assists, and then becoming a better shooter.
Yeah,
he's got to be a better 3-point shooter as the shooting guard.
Yeah, he's going to get those 3-point looks, especially when you still have guys like Wendell and Zepp still in your backcourt. In the backcourt gets deeper. I know at the end of the article, the backcourt gets deeper next year. Because if you want to consider Westry a guard, you can. Technically, you can consider Allen a guard, and you get Donaldson in there. So you're not. Everything's not going to be thrown on the two guard for just KD next year, especially when Allen was out in the early parts of the season. It was like, okay, KD, you're basically the 2 and the 3. You're dead the 2 and the 3. That's it.
Yep.
So
it's not like that this year.
It's not like that this year. It's not going to be like that this year. But I'm going to move on to the next category. And you said pre-show that you disagreed with this with me, and I don't know how you could. He scored 27 points. But the best moment from 2021, I have him in a loss. In Auburn's first loss of the year in the battle for Atlantis against UConn. He had 27 points, including the game-tying shot
off of
a steal, his 5th steal. He had 5 steals in the game. He also had 4 rebounds as a 6-foot shooting guard, and had that game shot, the game-tying shot to send it to the second overtime. And if Jabari Smith boxes out on that free throw, I think you are agreeing with me, because I think the only reason you're disagreeing with me is because Auburn did not win that basketball.
All right, so that was a fantastic overall game by KD. He was phenomenal. He was phenomenal in the last few minutes against Missouri. He beat Missouri.
Yeah.
Without him scoring those last 5 points or whatever he scored, we lose that game. bad
Yeah.
at Missouri.
Jabari was bad.
But
Jabari
everybody
was
was
bad. Jabari 3 for 15.
It was terrible. I- it's not so much the game performance that I liked, but we went and watched his performance for 5 minutes at Starkville.
Yeah.
We had jumped to a big lead. He had like 2 points during the regulation of the game. We go to get it to overtime, and KD pours in 12 points in 5 minutes in overtime. He went completely nuclear and just couldn't miss. Hitting threes, driving to the hole, laying up, getting fouled, making free throws. So that to me, yes, the Atlantis thing was a big deal. It was in a loss. It really doesn't matter, but it really doesn't matter. The Mississippi State game mattered, and again, without him, we don't win that game. We were way ahead and blew it, and Jabari was trying everything he could to get us back. Wendell was a little crazy, and KD basically walked in the huddle before overtime. And I mean, I wasn't in the huddle; I was in the upper deck. But I imagine he probably looked at the guys and goes, "Dude, I got it," because he did. He scored the first 12 points of overtime and ended up with 14 points and I don't know how many rebounds, but he was that. Do I want to see that all the time? I'd love to have that, but even if we get half of that, the energy, the shot making, the hitting outside shots, making your free throws. I think he made all of his free throws in overtime. He was. They couldn't stop him. They stopped him the entire game, but it got to overtime. And KD went, time for me to take over. He has that ability to take over a basketball game. He took over the Missouri game. We were all bad. He was bad. Everybody was bad in that game. Missouri was bad. And then he won it. And then he gets into that overtime. And like you said, that wins us the SEC title. And without him, I don't think we win that game.
I agree.
So that was my point. And it's not really a disagreement. Yours was a game. He had 27. He was fantastic against UConn. But it was a UConn preseason tournament. So that's why I picked Mississippi State.
Yeah, and you're right. And going back to that Mississippi State game, I want to point out a play in that Mississippi State game. First of all, KD drove to the basket, scored on the first play overtime, and then hit a three on the second overtime. And then I think it was Devin that missed a three, and Mississippi State went out on a run, and they went running, and Walker, you could see him trail, and Walker smacks it off the backboard.
Yeah.
And Wendell, it falls right in Wendell's hands, and Wendell chucks the ball all the way down the floor, and in the TV camera, all you could see was Jabari about half court. Jabari's wide open.
The ball went
you
way
get
over.
to Jabari, he's going to
way
dunk it.
by.
But KD's on the other end. And the TV camera, you cannot see that. And I saw it on Twitter after the game. Like, Wendell, what do you do? Oh my gosh, there's KD. In the arena, we all saw KD standing right there.
Absolutely.
And he
Landed up and got fouled.
He caught it, took one dribble, pump fake, got fouled, laid it up, and made it. Got the 3-point play.
That game was really good for him. The 5 minutes was really good for him. And again, that's towards the end of the year, like 2 games later, he goes 0 for 14 and we lose. Mm-hmm. So that's where you're talking about the consistency that I'd love to get out of him. If I could get half of what he did against Mississippi State overtime and spread it out over every game, he'd be hard to handle.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we're going to talk about the expectations for KD Johnson. We'll do this kind of quick. That way we can do a quick talk about next Thursday, which is the NBA draft. We're going to try and do a Friday episode, either pre-recorded but after the draft, or we're going to go live on Friday. We'll figure that out when it comes time. But let's finish what we're talking about KD Johnson. Yep. Expectations for 2022. I do believe him to retain his starting job. I don't think anybody comes near that. I think if someone were to be benched, I think it would be Zep. I think Zep would take the bench role and Wendell would jump up into the starting role. I think it stays the same for the start of the year. Just to see. I think we're getting Zep.
Bruce likes his two defenders, and KD and Zep, to start the game off. He likes Wendell provides instant impact offensively, but those two guys really are tough to beat to start a game off defensively. So I agree. He's the starting two guard.
I agree.
And if he could average 15, 4 or 5 rebounds, and 6-8 assists, I think we'd be golden.
I agree, because we're gonna have scorers, and yes, KD is one of them. I think when you think about KD's role this upcoming year, he's going to be asked to defend top players, top guards in the SEC, along with Zep. Zep's going to be asked that, and along with Allen. Allen's going to be asked that. And there is top guards in the SEC. You want to look at Arkansas, you want to look at Kentucky, you want to look at Alabama, you want to look at Tennessee.
Yep.
Like, all 4 of them have guards that were higher ranked than KD, Zep, and Allen. But all 4 of them need look. Those three will be asked to defend those type of players.
Yep.
And it's up to KD to turn that, not only to have a good performance defensively, but to change that for his offensive game and the team's offensive game.
Yep.
So just like I noted at the end of the article, and I noted earlier here in the show, the Auburn backcourt next year will be deeper. Yeah. It'll be deeper, it'll be stronger, and it'll be more experienced. I think our backcourt is close, maybe, to being the best part of our team. It wasn't last year. It wasn't close.
The front court was the best part.
I think we had the best front court in the country.
Yeah,
last year.
I would agree.
But I do think that the backcourt is much more important this year, especially after seeing how last year ended. You lose to a team with an experienced backcourt in the NCAA tournament with good scoring and defending guards. That's what you're getting. Not only KD, Wendell, and Zep, but Allen, Trey, and Chance.
Yeah, I think our backcourt will be better. They've got to be more consistent, and that's what we've harped on with KD. But it applies to Wendell. It applies to Zep, and we'll get to Wendell in a couple weeks. But that's definitely true.
All right, so let's do a quick little discussion about the NBA draft, which is Thursday. By the time we go live next, we will know where not only Jabari Smith will be playing his pro basketball, but Walker Kessler. And who?
Orlando.
Yeah. So Jabari has done 2 meetings, and he was in an interview the other day where he said, "Yeah, I've met with Oklahoma City and Orlando. That's the only 2 I plan to meet because I don't see myself going farther than 2." And I don't either, and neither do a lot of draft experts. And boy, is that cocky, but boy, is he right.
I like it.
Boy, is he right.
I
I do believe him to go number 1 to Orlando. I don't think Orlando is going to mess this up as much as they could. They very easily can mess this up and pay this stigma. But that's up to the Magic. I would be jubilant to see Jabari go to either one of those teams. Of course, I want to see number 1. I think the publicity for Auburn basketball would be great. Not only to have a number 1 pick, but also have another first rounder in the same draft. But his potential with Oklahoma City is eye-opening as well, because you look at their future is as built as Orlando's future as well. Orlando has a good young group of talent when you're talking about guys like Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac. And you're getting way too close to the camera. I know you're wanting me to say.
I want to hear the name that I want to hear.
And Mo Bamba, even though he's going to be traded.
He's traded.
He's going to be traded. He's not traded yet. And Chuma. Yeah. So they're very good. Yeah. Yeah, well, now it's that Draymond Green now.
Yeah, maybe
So
after last night.
we're talking about if he goes to Orlando, he fits right into that young group of talent. If he goes to Oklahoma City, he starts that young group of talent along with guys like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. But he's the top of that young talent because they have 17 first-round draft picks over the next 5 years. That's absurd. And thanks to the Paul George trade and the Russell Westbrook trade. There you go.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So you talk about that. You also want to think about where Walker Kessler could end up. I'm seeing his draft stock rise because of his shooting ability being shocking in not only the combine but in pre-draft work.
Bruce said he could shoot from outside, and he was not afraid
He's
to
like
shoot
shooting
from
step
outside.
back mid-range jumpers falling away on videos on Twitter. I'm like, what?
Wow,
Where was that at?
super talented.
He is. He's extremely talented. So you want to think about teams where he could end up. You think about the Chicago Bulls. You're thinking about Milwaukee. You're thinking about Miami. Teams that are already set and they're just missing
Shot block.
that missing piece that they need. You want to talk about shot blocker. You want to talk about rim finisher. You want to talk about an instant impact defensively. There you go. There's Walker Kessler. But we will know this time next week who that is. And next week's episode will be entirely on the NBA draft and recapping and projecting where those two wind up, not only in the rotation of their new teams, but how they could end up doing it next year. And that's what we will do next week, whether that is pre-recorded, it'll be recorded right after the draft, so that way it will go live on Friday at 6, or we will go live on Friday. So
right.
we'll figure that out when it comes time. If you want to, we will keep you updated. If you want to hear all about what we're going to do next week, just find us on Twitter at Graylover or at Graylover Hoops. You can find the article on either one of our Twitter pages as well, or you can go on auburndaily.com. Awesome, amazing stuff being done at auburndaily.com. Cheering on Auburn in the College World Series. Congratulations to the college to the Auburn baseball team tomorrow night.
Play Ole Miss tomorrow night.
That's right, at 6 Central Time.
Go Auburn
That's right.
baseball.
Yep. And so, with that said, we will look forward to next week. If you want to find all the amazing stuff on Twitter from Auburn Daily, go to SI_Auburn at SI_Auburn. And until next time, we're